Greetings to all who love good movies. In this episode I will tell you about a film called 8 Below based on real events. The film takes place at one of the scientific research bases in Antarctica. From early morning guide Jerry Shepard will be feeding his dogs with fish. At that time a plane lands nearby. The pilot of this plane is his longtime friend Katie. She has brought the geological research equipment of a doctor of geological sciences to the base. The unloading of this equipment is carried out by engineer mechanic Cooper, a friend of our hero. Later during a poker game, Jerry learns that the doctor's objective is to search for a meteorite that fell near Mount Melbourne. The road to the mountain goes over thin ice. Therefore, it is not possible to drive there in a vehicle. The base of the mountain can only be reached by dogsled. Jerry says that making such a crossing at the end of the season is too dangerous, but the expedition leader insists on carrying out this crossing. Shepard agrees, after which he prepares for the crossing. The next morning, Jerry gives a brief instruction to the doctor and introduces him to the dogs. The first pair consists of the lead dogs Maya and her old friend Jack. They are followed by Shorky and the young but promising Max. After them there are the twins Truman and Dewey. The team is completed by the strong Eskimo Huskies Shadow and Buck. Taking a memorable photo and saying goodbye to the team, the group sets off on their journey. The doctor has brought along a lot of heavy equipment. Therefore they themselves are heavily loaded. Soon the rocky section of the path ends, and our hero must cross over thin ice. Shepard decides to change the way the dogs are harnessed so they can walk in a fan formation. This significantly reduces the load on the ice, and in case one of the dogs falls, it won't drag the entire team with it. Upon reaching the glacier, Jerry hands over control of the sled to the doctor while he goes ahead to chart the route. When he discovers a crevasse, he signals for Nye to turn left. However, young Max doesn't listen and takes half of the dogs with him. This leads to the sled with the doctor falling into a crevasse. Jerry immediately rushes to the sled. He commands the dogs to pull with all their strength. In this way they manage to save the scientist and all his cargo. In the evening the group sets up camp. The doctor checks the route while Shepard tends to his dog's wounds. On the next day the polar explorers reach the base of the mountain. Here they plan to spend a whole week searching for the meteorite. Meanwhile, a specialist from the meteorological center contacts the base. He reports the approach of a large cyclone and urgently recommends returning all expedition members from the field. Shepard receives this information through the radio. He immediately orders to abort the mission. However, the doctor doesn't want to give up so easily. The polar explorers decide to stay for another day. The search operations begin. Jerry charts a safe route while Doc carefully examines the rock formations. Soon luck smiles upon the man and he finds a magnificent specimen. After that the group immediately heads back to the base. During the journey, Jerry notices a bloody trail from one of the dogs and stops the sled to treat an injury on old Jack. Meanwhile, the doctor tries to contact the base via radio. The ground beneath him gives way and he finds himself on thin ice. The next second he falls into the water. Shepard gives Maya a rope and orders her to crawl towards the doctor. With the help of the dogs they manage to rescue the man once again. By this time the group is engulfed in a storm. Additionally, the doctor suffers severe frostbite and needs to be urgently transported to the base. Jerry approaches Maya, appoints her as the leader, and instructs her to lead the sled in such challenging conditions to return home. Our heroes have a long way back to go. In the evening, Katie hears the barking of dogs and notices the sled. Smart Maya has found the way home. The group successfully reaches the base. Dr. McLaren needs urgent medical assistance. The leader decides to fly to the McMurrow station with the entire team's agreement. Due to limited space on the plane, Harrison suggests leaving the dogs at the base and returning for them later when the new winter crew arrives. Jerry wishes to stay and take care of the dogs. However, the leader is against it since the guy has severe frostbite in his hands and also needs medical assistance. Before takeoff, Cub tightens the dogs' collars tightly so they can't break free. Then amid the dogs barking, the whole group leaves the base. In the process, Jerry loses consciousness and regains it only at the station. From his friends he learns that due to weather conditions, all winterings have been cancelled, and the dogs are left abandoned at the base. The guy disagrees with this decision. He visits the command headquarters to obtain permission for a final flight. Unfortunately, the commander cannot make this decision. He informs our hero that there are still 10 groups of polar explorers on other bases waiting for their evacuation. Their evacuation will be prioritized. By the time it's the dog's turn, severe frosts will set in. This means further flights will become impossible. Upon returning home, Shepard begins reaching out to officials hoping to achieve the evacuation of his dogs. However, he receives rejections everywhere. No one wants to take risks for the sake of rescuing animals. Finally, Jerry decides to seek help from Dr. McLaren. The guy asks the doctor to allocate funds from the scientific fund to finance the evacuation. After all, it was thanks to the dogs that a valuable meteorite was discovered. However, the doctor also refuses our hero, pointing out that flying in current conditions is equivalent to suicide. He suggests that the guy try to forget about this unpleasant incident. At the same time, at the Victoria base, the dogs have already been alone for 15 days. At this moment, almost everyone managed to free themselves from collars and chains. Only Max and old Jack remained. Max also broke free from the chain while chasing a seagull. The entire pack started chasing the bird. Only Maya remained with old Jack. She tries to lift the leader, but he is already too weak. The dog bids farewell, licks Jack, and joins the pack. With Maya's clever trick, the dogs manage to catch several seagulls in an ambush. The dogs bring the caught birds to Maya and choose her as their new leader. On the 50th day of wandering, the dogs notice the northern lights in the sky. One of the twins chases after the reflections on the snow and doesn't notice the precipice falling off. Dewey stays in place due to the injuries he sustained. The rest approach and lie down next to him. In the morning, the entire pack wakes up. We see that Dewey did not survive the night, but the dogs need to keep moving forward. Maya takes everyone with her, but Max doesn't leave his friend until the end. Due to a severe storm, Max loses the pack's trail and gets separated from them. By this time on the mainland, Jerry stopped searching for funding and took a job as an instructor at a children's pool. One day, Katie came to his workplace. Learning that the guy had declined the next polar expedition, she decided to visit him. From their conversation, it becomes clear that our hero still suffers from the loss of the dogs. He couldn't bring them back and feels guilty about it. The girl tells him that constant hiding and worry won't solve the problems. The guy finally needs to accept what happened and stop blaming himself. After the conversation, Jerry visits the kennel where his dogs were raised. He wants to apologize to the dog handler for his behavior, but the man says there is no need to apologize. He advises the guy to find something that will help him find inner peace as soon as possible. And regretting the past is not a way out. Upon returning home, Jerry prepares warm clothing. He also gathers all his savings. He decides to go to the South Pole on his own. During the journey, the guy stops by a ceremony. Here Dr. McLaren is awarded for the meteorite discovery. In his speech, the man thanks all the staff of the Antarctic base and says that without their help, he wouldn't be standing on that stage now. The scientist notices his savior in the hall and approaches him to talk. Jerry congratulates the man on receiving the grant and announces his bold plan. In the evening, while tucking his son into bed, he noticed a child's drawing depicting a dog sled team. After that, he entered his office to calculate the expenses necessary for the new polar expedition. Meanwhile, the dogs had been walking for 152 days without a human. During this time, the packs managed to find a warehouse with supplies. Max was able to return to Victoria Base on his own. During a walk around the area, he noticed a frozen carcass of a stranded killer whale on the shore. Another predator became interested in this prey, so Max couldn't approach it. The rest of the pack heard his barking, and they came to help. Together, the dogs managed to drive away the leopard seal. Unfortunately, Maya suffered a serious injury to her hind leg. This time, the pack didn't abandon their leader. They regularly brought food to Maya. They chose Max as their new leader. Meanwhile, Jerry arrives in the port city of New Zealand. Icebreakers depart from this city to the Antarctic waters. Katie and Cup join him at a local bar. Dr. Mackler hired them for his new expedition. The man managed to allocate funds from a scientific grant for this purpose. Combining their efforts, the group embarks on a long and challenging journey to reach the nearest polar base. Cooper's girlfriend worked at this base. Therefore, he knew about the snowmobile that our heroes used to reach Victoria Base. Upon Jerry's arrival, he immediately approaches the dog team. He is the first to find Jack. The guy moves forward and discovers a torn-off collar. Seeing this, the whole group feels hopeful. Jerry lifts the entire chain with a sudden movement, and the other collars are also torn. At that moment, the sound of a dog barking is heard. Max appears on the horizon with the rest of the pack. Jerry notices 5 huskies in front of him and realizes that not all of them survive. Later during the loading process, Max refuses to get into the snowmobile. He leads the guy to the place where Maya is located. By this time, the dog is noticeably exhausted. However, thanks to Max, she manages to survive. The group takes the dogs and heads home. This movie was dedicated to the Antarctic explorers and their dogs, who showed unwavering resilience and bravery, becoming an inspiration for creating this film. And as tradition goes, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who watched it till the end. Your likes and comments are greatly appreciated and contribute to the development of our channel.